Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. I've noticed a very disturbing trend this year, which is in stark contrast to events of previous years. Specifically, what I'm talking about is the underreporting or no reporting taking place in the mainstream, lamestream, fake stream media in South Africa regarding rural violence, insecurity, and farm murders, which continue at an unhindered pace across South Africa. This calendar year, it seems as if farm murders have fallen out of favor with the media that's obsessed with getting clicks and eyeballs. What's going on? We saw endlessly reports about the Brendan Horner murder last year, which is right to report on the situation, and many other murders, including Edward Neumeister and many others who were murdered last year. The 26-year-old pregnant mother of two, 4 months pregnant, butchered like livestock in her home at the Ayub farm near Wenen. But this year, it's almost impossible to find a mainstream media report about a farm murder. It happens, but it's certainly not front page news. It isn't something that's getting attention. And this is disturbing. We've already seen the president of South Africa lie at the United Nations to Bloomberg when he responded to a tweet by Donald Trump a couple of years ago in which he said, there are no farm murders in South Africa. There are no white farmers being murdered in South Africa. Well, it's a total lie. Rural insecurity is a scourge in South Africa, and the failure of the not prepared for it South African police service to deal with and intelligence services is a disgrace and an indictment on the rule of the African National Congress. Rural South Africans find themselves at the mercy of criminal syndicates and of murderers and thieves, with a police service that's unwilling or incapable of responding or let alone protecting South Africans. And what brings this about? Well, the latest report comes from a website, SouthAfricaToday.net, which shares a story from a source about another farm murder that took place last night on the September 25th, 2021 at 1 a.m. A small holding in Kameelsdrift, just outside of Pretoria in the Gauteng province, where 5 armed attackers gained entry to the home through a window after breaking burglar bars. Levno Botha, 70 years of age, was overpowered by the attackers on his bed. His wife, Amelia, who was in the house but in another bedroom, 64 years of age. After hearing the commotion, she went to investigate, was confronted by one of the attackers who fled out the kitchen door. Apparently, a 64-year-old woman scared the bejesus out of him. She called out to her son, who also stays in the property, for help. When her son stormed into the home to assist, the attackers fired a shot at her husband, but missed. Now, these cowardly, savage SOBs were in the process of fleeing after ransacking the home and gathering a few items to steal. They did manage to get a phone, a mobile, and a wallet before they fled. But one of the attackers, who had already fled the scene, was outside the home, fired a shot through a broken window at Levno Botha, hitting him in the back, fatally wounding him. There have been no arrests. Hardly a surprise. Hardly a surprise. This violence continues unbelievably in South Africa, and the world looks the other way. Nothing happens. Now, there were 445 farm attacks in Gauteng in the financial year that ended March 31st. That's the South African government's financial year, ended March 31st of last year. 445. Now, Gauteng is not known to be a farming province. I mean, it is the most heavily populated, the wealthiest, and the most industrialized part of South Africa. But there are farms there. Farms within close proximity to major metropolitan areas like Johannesburg and Pretoria. Now, in response to a question posed by Freedom Front Plus member Cobus Hofman, the government stated that in those 445 attacks, 11 people were killed during the execution of rural crimes in that 12-month period, but only 3 people were arrested. 11 murdered South Africans, only 3 people arrested. I also point out that there are 3 hotspot crimes, or 3 criminal hotspots in Gauteng, 2 of them, Heckport, Muldersdrift, and the West Rand, and the third one, which is where this murder took place on the 25th, is in Kameelsdrift, east of Pretoria. Back on September 27, 2019, when this issue was raised and highlighted to the authorities in South Africa, yet again, 3 attacks took place in Kameelsdrift on the same day, including that of a farmer who was shot dead while repairing his fence at 2:00 in the afternoon. So these aren't simply attacks late at night when these cowards come to take lives away from South Africans. They also occur in broad daylight. 2:00 in the afternoon, a farmer repairing his fence. What's more natural than repairing your fence as a farmer? Shot dead and murdered No arrests were made in that case, to my knowledge, to date. It's past time that the world started paying attention to the horrific violence that occurs in South Africa, the tortures, the maimings, the murders, while the government of South Africa actively, in its race hustling narrative, denies that this is taking place. The image you see behind me, folks, is the Witkois Monument located in South Africa. This is on private land. Each cross represents a murdered South African farmer or family member since the ruling African National Congress took over the country. It would shock you to know the number of people who've been murdered in South Africa since the ANC began running this country. Folks, the disturbing part about this is the media, which fueled the nonsense and the narrative and complaints about the white rural farming community, complaining about white genocide and effort to wipe out South Africans. Now, I don't believe that's the case, and I've never argued in that case. I've talked about rural insecurity and the vulnerability and the isolation of rural communities who are at risk, particularly from criminal syndicates who plan these things, who come with body armor, cell phone jammers, and police-issued service weapons caught on video, surveillance, breaking into homes and murdering rural South Africans, the majority of whom, of course, are white South Africans. But farm workers, farm supervisors have also been murdered, and Black farmers have been attacked and murdered in this too, as well as Indians and coloreds. And because that doesn't fit their narrative, they like to run the story about white genocide, fueling and overstating a claim that was made by some people and attributing falsely the term white genocide to groups who said nothing about it whatsoever. But now that that narrative has run its course, at least for the time being, the media doesn't want to cover this anymore. It's a disgrace. It's an indictment on the African National Congress. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa is fond of going to the World Assembly, the United Nations General Assembly, and telling the world that's an indictment on humanity that only the wealthy nations have vaccines. Well, perhaps that's because you sat on your ample bottom and did nothing to secure vaccines, no deposits, no coordination with pharmaceutical companies known for being part of Operation Warp Speed, no effort whatsoever on the part of the government of South Africa to secure vaccines, and then famously rejecting vaccines on the basis of junk science, and then trying to sell those same vaccines to other Africans when you claim they didn't work in your country. So he tells the world it's an indictment on the world. Well, I have an indictment on the ANC and this endless horrific violence where children, women are raped, murdered, maimed, dismembered, electrocuted, shot, while the government denies the existence of this activity. It's pathetic. Stop it already. Enough. This must stop. Hashtag the ANC must fall. South Africans have a choice. You can whine about this. You can do something about it on November 1st. Go out and vote for the opposition party that has a legitimate chance of capturing your metro. In most cases, that's a Democratic Alliance. In some cases, it might be UDM, it might be the Freedom Front Plus or the Inkatha Freedom Party. But make sure you don't vote for the ANC and don't vote for the EFF, or this will continue into perpetuity or until all farmers are obliterated. And if you think they're going to stop when white farmers are gone, you're delusional. They'll murder colored, Indian farmers and Black farmers in South Africa. They'll never stop. They'll never stop because the ANC is complicit in denying the existence of this horrific scourge. Folks, that's my video on this topic. Another murder takes place, another murder in rural South Africa, this one in the most industrialized province of South Africa, in Gauteng. Unbelievable, the ANC. And unbelievable, more importantly, is the dearth of media coverage in the death of this man, shot by a coward fleeing his property. Folks, if you're not a subscriber, become a subscriber. Smash that button right down there. We get independent, objective analysis of events across Africa, and in Southern Africa in particular, and especially in South Africa, and the actors who are engaged in Africa, like the United States, China, and the European Union. God bless, and condolences to the family on their loss.